Hello, hello. We are live. Hello, critical thinkers. Hope all is well. Excuse me. It has been a couple of weeks since I've been on. As some of you may or may not know, I had some health issues. I was out of commission for about a good week and a half, but I'm back with a vengeance. I'm back to cover the abuses and the atrocities occurring in the New York State Department of Corruption and Criminal Sadists. The reporting has to continue. We have to move on with covering these cases. And so here I am today. So thank you for being here. If all of y'all could do me a favor, everyone who's on, if you guys can do me a quick favor and please like the stream when you have a moment, please tickle or smash that like button, whichever you prefer. It greatly helps with the algorithm. So thank you. So if you have a moment, please like it. Please like the video, share the video with everyone. And for those of you who haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It is greatly appreciated. And if you have a moment, if you guys can do me a favor, just write down where you're watching from. We have Sharon who's watching from Bethlehem, PA. Sharon, thank you for being here again. Really appreciate your viewership. Appreciate you being here, Sharon. So if everyone on can please write down where they're watching from, that will be greatly appreciated. So today we are going to be going over yet another case of abuse. This case of abuse occurred at a Gouverneur Correctional Facility, and this originally occurred back in 2020. So, and there was a civil case that was involved. So this is a great article, and this article came out about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, from the Marshall Project. For those of you who don't know, the Marshall Project is a organization. They focus on journalism, and they focus on journalism in the criminal justice space. So for those of you who are not familiar with the Marshall Project, you guys definitely need to go over to the Marshall Project and support the work that they do. Just like with the freelancenews.org, the Marshall Project is a source that I use on a consistent basis. They cover the abuses that are occurring, and they truly go deep into those issues with data and statistics. So very important that you guys go over and support the Marshall Project and the writers over at the Marshall Project. Excuse me. I'm putting a link in the description now so everyone has it. TheMarshallProject.org. Don't quite go there right now, but eventually when this stream is over, definitely go over there and pay them a visit. So I want to say thank you for Powderfinger for being here. Powderfinger is in Westchester County, New York. Thank you, Powderfinger, for being here. Appreciate you being here again. We have Kim Warner. Kim is from upstate New York. Hello, Kim. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Thank you immensely. So I'm going to jump into we have another person. We have Elizabeth Miller. Elizabeth, thank you again. Thank you for being here. I am not even going to attempt to pronounce that town in Pennsylvania. I'm going to try Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. I know I'm butchering it, so my apologies for that, Elizabeth, for butchering the name of your town in Pennsylvania. But that's a pretty hard one to say. Pretty hard one to say. So again, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with y'all and pull up an article from the Marshall Project again. So here we go. Again, the Marshall Project. Go over and give them some views and check them out. They're really a great organization. Let me fix the screen here. Okay. So as many of you know, this channel, it's about uncovering and discussing the abuses, the murders occurring in the New York State Department of Corrections. This channel was really birthed back in December of 2024 with the video footage of the Robert Brooks murder at Marcy Correctional Facility. Since then, I've all of my content has been about those abuses in the New York State correctional facilities. And for those of you who would have told me back in December or November of last year that murders and beatings of incarcerated individuals were common, I would not have believed you until I would have gotten to do my own research, and hence that's the purpose of this channel. Um, so this case, which I'm going to read, is involving a gentleman by the name of Michael McCallion. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into the article. I'm going to read the article for you guys, and then I'm going to be giving you my commentary. Real quick, BJ Webbs. Hello, BJ Webbs. Glad you are feeling better, Northern New York. BJ Webbs, thank you for being here. Really, really appreciate it. Again, we have Elizabeth Miller, LOL. I am from the town where they show Punksky Phil the groundhog every February 2nd. That's a good piece of trivia to know. Thank you, Elizabeth, for sharing that. Thank you. So let's jump into the article. Um, this article is from Joseph Neff, who's been committed to covering abuses in the New York State Department of Corrections. So I also like to give the writers shout outs as well for the work that they do, because they're really behind the trenches, really pulling up the data and doing the work to get these articles out there. So thank you, Joseph, for that. Okay, here we go. When he took the witness stand in federal court on March 17th in Albany, Michael McCallion was nervous. He had waited 3 years for this moment, for a chance to hold accountable the men he said brutally assaulted him. So, for those of you who don't know, there are many, many cases. In fact, I received an email today from someone asking me to cover or give some data about the number of civil cases occurring in New York State, in which the New York State Attorney General um, is protecting correction officers from lawsuits. Okay, these lawsuits that occur typically take years to go to a jury, meaning that it's a lengthy process from discovery, from pre-litigation. And so this gentleman, Michael McCallion, waited at least 3 years before he was able to tell his story to a jury. Let's move on with the article. He told the jury in 2020. Well, I'm sorry, my apologies. He told that the jury, he told the jury that in 2020, a group of correction officers had beaten him in a New York State prison near the Canadian border, breaking 4 of his ribs. After McCallion filed a complaint about the assault, he said 2 other officers beat him further and ruptured an eardrum. Now, this is something that we hear that is extremely, extremely common. When you do have an incarcerated individual who files a complaint with OSI, they are typically retaliated against, and the abuse does not stop. And in fact, some of the antagonization that occurs happens in front of the OSI investigators. So this seemed to be a similar case here, in which you had Michael McCallion file a complaint about being assaulted, and then after that, 2 other officers beat him and ruptured an eardrum, which is absolutely crazy. And so the thing I want to do also um, is actually bring up that civil suit. If I can pull up the paperwork, I will. Okay, so I will. I'll bring that up in a second. Here, I'll just jump back to the article and let's go over that. Across the courtroom, 7 guards impassively watched McCallion's testimony. Each later testified that he and his colleagues did nothing of the sort. No one assaulted the formerly incarcerated man. Obviously, everyone here has heard of the blue wall of silence. One thing that is typical and common is that correction officers will lie for each other. This is systematic and this is embedded in the culture of corruption that's occurring in the New York State Department of Correction. So if this doesn't surprise us, doesn't surprise me that they all have the same story, that nothing occurred. Let's move on with the article. For 4 days, 8 jurors sat in a historic high uh, ceilinged Art Deco courtroom and weighed the two irreconcilable stories. McCallion's attorney offered several facts supporting his version of events, but the plaintiff lacked one critical thing: video evidence. Video evidence was lacking. Now, we see why correction officers throughout New York State uh, striked. And many of these correctional officers were striking and stating they did not want to wear body cameras. This is the reason why. The guards at Gouverneur Correctional Facility did not have body-worn cameras. The sites of the alleged beatings lacked fixed security cameras. This may soon change. The New York legislature recently passed budget allocates 418 million for body and fixed cameras and requires that prison employees wear and activate body cameras in every interaction with incarcerated people. I'm going to pull myself up very quickly because here's the thing. You can require correctional officers to wear body-worn cameras. You can put these cameras up in these facilities. The problem is that when they do not wear their body-worn cameras, there is no consequences. So I want you to understand this, okay? There are no consequences for correction officers. We saw the Messiah Nantry case. There was one body-worn camera. The correctional officer was facing outside, facing away from the action. You had the Robert Brooks beating. You had four body-worn cameras on standby mode, and those correction officers did not know that it was recording. The problem is there are no consequences for when they do not wear these body-worn cameras. They're not losing their jobs. It's virtually impossible to terminate correctional officers. And New York State docs themselves do not have the authority to fire correctional officers. Imagine those people who own their own business. You have your own organization. And imagine not having the ability to fire your own staff. It's absolute bonkers. It's an upside down world that could have been corrected a long time ago, but nobody effing cares. Nobody cares. Let's move on with the article. Those changes can't help but McCallion and other prisoners who accused guards of abusing them. A recent investigation by the Marshall Project found at least 46 cases in which prisoners in New York alleged guards abused them in an infirmary. Now we know uh, very quickly. So we know from previous articles, we know from guests who have been on this show, on Critical Conversations HR. We've spoken to the aunt of Christopher Keeles, who was beaten the day before Messiah Nantry. We have spoken to other family members. In fact, I see, Keisha Wong's mom. I'm sorry, we see Keisha Wong, who is the mom of Keon Walker. She's here. Her son was savagely beaten. Many incarcerated individuals have the infirmary be the third place where they're beaten. They're typically beaten when there's an attempt to do a pat down. They're beaten in a van on the way to the infirmary, and they're beaten at the infirmary again. So we know that these infirmaries are havens of torture. They're the modern day torture chambers. And very quickly, I want to do one quick thing. Um, one quick thing I do want to share with you very quickly. I want to share with you because this, you know what, I'll hold off, but I want to give you the names of the other correctional officers involved in the Michael McCallion case. And I have that pulled up. I'll give that to you in a second. So let's continue on with the article. The Corrections Department has begun putting more cameras in prisons following the December beating death of Robert Brooks, during which several body cameras were, unbeknownst to the officers, recorded. The video shocked the public and led to criminal charges against 10 officers. But most abuse cases don't have video, the Marshall Project filed. Now, you wonder why correction officers do not want to wear body worn cameras. This, in part, is one reason why. The other part why correction officers do not want to wear body worn cameras is because they're required during their shift to do various rounds. If you are a correction officer working in the SHU, you are required to do a walk and to do a check of every incarcerated individual. That does not occur. And so the body worn camera will show inactivity. It's going to show them sleeping on the job. And this is why they've protested wearing body worn cameras. Back to the article. Without video, advocates and attorneys say it's difficult for New York prisoners to prove their allegations. One thing that's shocking to me is that one thing that doesn't lie are medical reports, x-rays. You can have testimonies of correction officers not quote unquote abusing those that are incarcerated. But you have hospitalizations, you have serious injuries that occur from these brutal beatings. Let's continue on with the article. McCallion's case began on the night of October 28th, 2020. He later admitted he and some friends were breaking the prison's rules when they went into a dormitory bathroom and smoked K2, synthetic marijuana with unpredictable effects. McCallion, who was serving a 5-year sentence for heroin possession and burglary, said he was the last to notice that a correctional officer had entered the bathroom. He flattened himself against the wall and tried to shimmy past the guard in a silly fashion, he said, on the witness stand. So just one quick thing. I noticed we had a bunch of people come into the chat. I want to thank everyone for being here. If you have a moment, if you could please do me a favor. If you can like the video, that's greatly appreciated. If you can share the video with others. If you haven't already, if you can please subscribe. And if you feel so compelled, we do appreciate any super chat, super thanks, or cash app. So we thank you for that as well. Let's jump back to the action. So Matthew Mara was the only officer in a dorm of 50 men. He testified that McCallion was pacing and screaming and flailing his arms. Mara, a former wrestler, said the prisoner lunged at him. So he used a maneuver known as a hip toss to throw McCallion to the floor and land on top of him. Mara pushed a button on his radio to summon for help. The two agree on one thing. Mara had McCallion under control and handcuffed in about a minute. So here we have the correction officer, Mara, admit to having Michael restrained. He was restrained. He was handcuffed in about a minute. Okay. Prison policy requires that medical staff examine officers and incarcerated people after every use of force. At 9:52 p.m., correctional officers escorted McCallion to the infirmary, a 5-minute walk. McCallion testified that the guards took him into a frisk room in the infirmary where they knocked him to the floor and kicked, stomped, and punched him. They left him handcuffed to a chair for about 15 minutes Upon return, McCallion said the guards beat him again before taking him to a nurse. And again, this is something that we see that is common. Correctional officers using the infirmary as a modern day torture chamber. A nurse examined Mara in the infirmary at 10:10 p.m. Records show provided ice and recommended that the officer take Motrin for bruises incurred in the takedown. The first record of McCallion in the infirmary was at 10:30 p.m., nearly 40 minutes after the escort started, when an officer photographed him in his boxers, showing red abrasions on his back, neck, and head. As a nurse examined McCallion, he turned pale and began sweating profusely. His blood pressure dropped to 50/36, wow, dangerously low, and he began convulsing. The nurse feared a heart attack. An ambulance took him to the local hospital where x-rays revealed 4 broken ribs. McCallion was transferred to a medical center in Syracuse for treatment. After returning October 29th, McCallion spent a night in the prison infirmary and was sent to solitary confinement the next day. A senior prison manager held a disciplinary hearing a week later on November 5th. McCallion pleaded guilty to smoking K2. McCallion testified he also told the manager about the assault, which triggered a mandatory internal investigation. That evening, 2 guards in blue shirts escorted McCallion in handcuffs to a room where a lieutenant in a white shirt would interrogate him about his allegations. McCallion testified that the officers ordered him to deny that he was beaten. So here we see from testimony here the retaliation. We see the intimidation that these 2 guards escorted Mr. McCallion to a room where there was a lieutenant, where he was interrogated, and he was ordered to deny that he was beaten. Horrible. McCallion did not comply. He testified about what he alleges happened next. The guards returned him to his cell, where they choked and punched him in his broken ribs. McCallion said one guard slapped him on the side of his head with an open palm. He felt his eardrum explode and dropped to the floor screaming. McCallion said the officer left with a final warning. Don't talk to the white shirts. They don't run this place. We do. End quote. On November 7th, McCallion complained that he was in pain and couldn't hear out of his right ear. A nurse saw ear blockage and gave him drops to remove wax. McCallion said the liquid dripped through his punctured eardrum and caused so much pain that it felt like he was pouring acid directly into his brain. He soon developed an ear infection. The officers gave succinct and uniform testimony, right? So this is something that we see common. These correctional officers get together to get their stories correct. In the case of Messiah Nantry, we hear about the infamous Raspberries Diner, in which these correctional officers came together to get their stories straight and decide what's what. Continuing on with the article, there were no assaults in the frisk room on October 28th or in the solitary cell on November 5th. Those days were ordinary work days of which the guards have no distinct memory. Each said they took their constitutional oath seriously. They knew that they could be fired or prosecuted for beating a prisoner. We know that shit doesn't stop them from continuing the assaults and the beatdowns that occurred. McCallion did not help his case as a witness. He argued with the guard's defense lawyer and failed to answer questions despite repeated admonitions from an increasingly irritated U.S. District Judge Glenn Sudeby. Near the end of McCallion's testimony, Sudeby interrupted in expiration. Excuse me, answer the question. So it seems like Michael McCallion was having a hard time just answering questions during the civil case. So moving on. In closing, McCallion's lawyer urged the jury to focus on what happened between 9:52 p.m. when guards began escorting McCallion to the infirmary, which takes just a few minutes, and his client's appearance in the infirmary at 10:30 p.m. He contended that those 38 minutes support McCallion's version of events. He also pointed to medical records and McCallion's broken ribs and punctured eardrum as evidence of abuse. And this is something that I was saying earlier, is that absence minus the video, from any video occurring, many of these abuses uh, are followed by medical reports, hospitalizations that shows those that are incarcerated are not just being restrained, they're being attacked and they're being beaten. So I'm glad the attorney was able to focus on the medical history, the medical records. The deputy attorney general defending the officers counted that a sinus injection ruptured the eardrum while the takedown broke his ribs. He urged the jury to ignore the unreliable words of a formerly incarcerated man pursuing windfall in a civil case. And this is something we hear common. These attorneys from the New York State Attorney General's office, when they make their cases and they're defending these correctional officers, they absolutely put down the incarcerated individual. They tell juries you can't trust them; they're not believable. It's absolutely disgraceful. Disgraceful. The jury deliberated for 1 hour and cleared the guards of all charges. McCallion teared up upon hearing the verdict. The judge suggested that he needed to put this behind him and move on. So, a question for you guys in the chat here. Some of you in the chat, you may have been attacked by a correctional officer while you were incarcerated. So my question for everyone is, how easy is it for someone to move on from being abused in prison? Like, do you think this individual should move on quickly? Or do you think that people will undergo some level of post-traumatic stress from being incarcerated and also from being attacked by a correctional officer? So do me a favor, put what you think in the chat. Should did that judge have that right to tell him to just move on? Write yes in the chat or write no. Definitely let me know what you think. So moving on, quote, "With all due respect, Your Honor, I can't," he said. And it's something that's very, very hard to do, I would imagine that. McCallion has filed a separate lawsuit in the State Court of Claims, where it will be decided by a single judge. A trial is likely to begin in the coming months. So it seems McCallion has filed a separate lawsuit in the State Court of Claims. So he's going to have another opportunity to file a civil suit. And in this case, I will follow. So I will continue to cover this. A spokesperson for the Corrections Department said that as of May 23rd, all officers at Gouverneur Prison were wearing body cameras. He said the facility's infirmary will have fixed cameras by the end of the year. So the Marshall Project was able to get a quote, and the Corrections Department, a spokesperson for the Corrections Department, said that all officers at Gouverneur were wearing body cameras. So this is a quote. If anything ever happens in Gouverneur Correctional Facility, we should expect to see this body cam footage. So that is the end of the article. I did say I did want to share with you guys the names of the other officers involved. Give me one quick second. I'm going to pull up another tab for you guys. Okay, so I just wanted to share with you guys the other officers who were involved in the civil suit. We have the primary officer involved here, which was Matthew Mara. You have Sergeant Joseph Coffey. You have Correctional Officer Marcus Hart, Correctional Officer Sean Barbarito, Correctional Officer Gordon Griffith, Correctional Officer Widener, and Correctional Officer Craig Jackson. One thing I want to do very quickly here is put a link in the chat. If anybody wants to come up and chop it up with me and give me your input and what you think about this case and what you think about abuses in the New York State Correctional Facility. The only thing that I will say is that if you want to come on, just be sure to share your camera, share who you are, have no loud music in the background. YouTube is very finicky with music. I don't want to get a copyright strike. So if you want to come on with me and chop it up, I'll be more than happy to have you come on and have a conversation with me. I'm also very interested as well in with those people that disagree with me. So if you disagree with me on anything I've said on this live stream or on other live streams, by all means, feel free to come on and we can have a conversation. So what I want to do now is just go through a couple of quick comments here. So we have BJ Webb says, when reports are taken by OSI, it is sent to the sergeant higher ups right at the facility. So it is like a huge slap in the face. Yeah. So, we're seeing the retaliation that's occurring. There's been other cases in which I do recall speaking to Ruby Rivera, Christopher Keyless's aunt, who said that when Christopher was questioned by OSI, you had the correction officers right out front, watching and hearing. So that's a very big slap in the face. Very big slap in the face. Um, so okay, all right, guys. So it has been about 35 minutes, and I'll wait to see if anybody wants to come on. I put the link in the chat if you want to come on and chit chat with me. Also, for those of you who just came on late, you can feel free to go back and watch it from the beginning. If y'all could please do me a favor, if you can like the stream, like the video, share it, subscribe to the channel, and if you feel compelled to, feel free to donate to the channel. This channel is 100%, 100% independently ran, and we have no sponsors. But my goal is to give you the news. My goal is to cover these issues, and your support greatly helps the channel. So I want to thank you, everyone who in the past who has supported the channel, and everyone in the future who will support the channel as well. So I thank you for that. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay. With that being said, I don't have anyone in the back, so I want to thank everyone for being here. As I say in all of my videos, my goal is to go deeper than what the mainstream media is telling and sharing with you. Oh, there's one thing that I do want to do. I do want to do a quick plug, and I do want to talk about a live stream I am doing tomorrow night. Give me one quick second. I'm going to pull up. So tomorrow night, I'm doing a live stream. Many people have said, correctional officer is one of the most dangerous jobs that could be had. So I decided to do some research and to see how dangerous is it to work in a New York State correctional facility. So tomorrow night, I'm doing a live stream. I'm going to be presenting data straight from docs. This is not me making up shit. This is me going through docs, paperwork, fact sheets to go over whether being a New York State correctional officer is truly a dangerous job. You don't want to miss this. Tomorrow, I'm going over some very key, important information. I'd love for you to be here tomorrow night, 9:30 p.m. I am going to I'm going to put a link for tomorrow's live stream now. Okay, here we go. So that link I just posted is a link for tomorrow night. Save it, share it with the people that you care about. Tomorrow night, 9:30, we'll be going over, is being a New York State correctional officer a dangerous job? So again, thank you for being here. Take care. God bless, and see you next time.